you have to train your mind like you train your body. Consistency and being thorough are the things that are going to help you get to where you want to be from a mental health standpoint, especially as an athlete. What up, guys? Today we're talking about the protocol for developing better mental health habits. Physical health has really defined steps on how you can reach your goal and what you can do in order to achieve those goals. Things like, in order to build muscle, you have to have the right amount of calories, you have to put enough strain on the muscle, you have to make sure that you're building the muscle in terms of what your goals are, whether that's for strength or hypertrophy. There's defined steps and defined ways that we can go about doing that. But mental health is a little bit harder because those steps aren't as clear. And the problem with that is that mental health has steps, but it can be a really complex process, and there's a few different strategies that people can use depending on what's going to work out best for them. The very first thing that I would like to do for you guys is help you challenge your perspective on what mental health really is. Because a lot of times I feel like people think that mental health is an emotional issue that they have, or that it's just something that's wrong with them personally and that there's not really any other way to go about fixing that. But here's the thing. If we really dial into mental health, what is the source of your mentality? Your brain, right? And so if we think about mental health as being more of a brain health issue, it can help you shift out of thinking that there's something wrong with you, and maybe that there's more of a discrepancy happening in your head that needs to be addressed. If we think about mental health as being more of a brain health issue and is something that's attempting to steal your mind, I think that's going to help. Now, what do I mean by mental health is a brain issue and your brain's trying to steal your mind? Well, if you've ever had a moment where you really kind of have an angel and a devil on your shoulder, that's what I'm referring to here. There's the part inside your head that always likes to talk crap. And then there's the part inside your head that is the real you, the one that has a little bit more of a logical thinking brain to it, the one that kind of rationalizes things, the one that makes sense of the world. So there's the false you, and then there's the true you. And if you look at, different meditation practices, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, there are ways that you can kind of get in touch with your truer self. But either way, that's what I mean when I say mental health is really a brain health issue and your brain is trying to steal your mind, because the side of your brain that's always talking crap is the one that is trying to hijack your brain and send you into a spiral and send you into these deep holes that can be harder to dig out of. Here's the thing. One of the observations that I've had recently is tying into the law of conservation of energy. Now, if you haven't taken a biology class in years, basically the law of conservation of energy says that it can either be created or destroyed. And I believe that mental health is similar in the sense that when you have those feelings of negative emotions, they don't go away. They transfer to somewhere else. And so we have to figure out good outlets in order to transfer those negative emotions. When we talk about negative emotions, we have to give them a place to go. Energy and emotions are very similar. One of my managers once told me that emotions are energy in motion. And if you don't give those emotions a place to go, or if you don't give them the time and opportunity to be worked through, it's something that's going to build up and it's going to pop in one capacity or another. So how do we prevent those emotions from building up? How do we prevent those negative emotions from getting to a place where they're going to pop and it causes a lot of problems for us? Well, here's some protocols that might be able to help you out. First, self-care. And I'm not just talking about bubble baths, and I'm not just talking about, drinking a glass of wine on the couch while you snuggle in a blanket and watch your favorite movie. Now, I'm not saying that's not self-care, But what I am saying is that self-care has to be the hard stuff too. It has to be the stuff that is actually going to care for yourself. Things like making sure you're getting enough sleep. Things like making sure you're eating well, that your diet is going well, that you continue to train even on the days where it's really hard. Self-care isn't just about soothing the parts of yourself that you want to avoid dealing with in that moment. It's about really, truly taking care of yourself. And when you practice good self-care, it helps you manage stress, which is point number 2, managing stress. If you can change where you let your mind go, it's going to change the way you feel in your body. For example, if you think negative thoughts, or if you have these negative thoughts that are constantly running through your head, your body's going to be tense, you're going to feel stress, and that is to help keep you safe. Your brain is like, oh, I need to keep this person safe. They're feeling stressed, so we got to be ready to bolt at any minute. It comes back into your fight, flight, or freeze responses that everybody is hardwired in their brain. And so when you're thinking those negative emotions all the time, it can also cause you to feel that tension, to feel that stress, because your body is mentally trying to keep you safe, because there is that mind-body connection there. But if you think in a positive way, the opposite is true. And if you ever get the chance to look up Joe Dispenza, this is basically what his research is all about, because he believes that if you can think your body into stressful situations, and we all know that stress does a lot of harm to the body as far as like raising the blood pressure and other health complications that can come along with that. If you can think your body into being sick, you can also think your body into being well. And so he's a really cool resource. If you ever get the opportunity to kind of check some of his stuff out, he's got a million different videos on YouTube. I would definitely recommend checking him out, because it's a really cool perspective. And it's true. If you start thinking in a more positive way, the opposite is going to be true. You're going to end up being more relaxed in situations, and you're going to have the ability to be more present in situations, which leads me to point number 3, mindfulness. Mindfulness is being aware of what's going on in you and around you. Basically, mindfulness for me is a way to help ground yourself in the moment to reduce stress. Things like meditation and breathing exercises are awesome for this, because it's gonna, 1, help reduce stress, 2, help give you better focus, and 3, help offer different clarity for whatever situation that you're trying to process through. Now, one of my favorite ways to do this from an athletic training standpoint is at some point during your training, get your heart rate up as high as you can, quickly. Get that heart rate up. And then once you're finished with that interval, try to lower your heart rate back down as quickly as you can. So basically, get your heart rate up a period of time, whatever interval you choose. And then after that interval is over, try to lower your heart rate as fast as you can. Whether that's taking deep breaths, whether that's just, trying to catch your breath in general, raise your heart rate, then try to get it back down as quickly as possible. And the cool thing that I've noticed when I've done that is that it forces me to only pay attention to my heart rate and my breathing, and it dials in to a mind-body connection for me that I don't always cognitively think about. It's almost like a breathwork drill in and of itself, without having to sit and be still and be quiet, because I know that doesn't always work for everybody. But if you can incorporate some of that into your training already, it makes a huge difference. Now, let's talk about some of the things that we should maybe avoid, specifically substances. And that's my point number 4, is substance use. It's a way to avoid what you're trying to deal with. Now, let's talk about avoidance in general. Avoidance reinforces anxiety, because your brain, your lizard brain, thinks this is how I kept my human safe last time. And so we need to avoid this negative thing in the future at all costs, because that's what kept us safe before, that's what's going to keep us safe now. And the thing about humans is that we are really good at avoiding things that make us uncomfortable. We have several different ways that we can do this, whether it's just physically leaving the space, whether it's not emotionally processing, or whether it's through numbing. And that becomes an issue because, like I said earlier, emotions are energy in motion. And if you don't deal with them, they're going to build up and pop. And this is one of those moments where when you avoid, it's going to cause that moment when those emotions build up and they pop. Substance use is a great way to avoid because it alters your mental state. It creates an environment where it's harder to deal with and harder to treat the mental things that you're dealing with in your head. It's harder to deal with the brain health issues that you have if you're altering the mental state of your brain. When we talk about substance use, I'm not saying you can't ever drink or you can't ever go out and have a good time, but I'm saying that it should be moments where it's few and far between, because if you're constantly altering your mental space, it's harder to get a grasp on what is actually happening in that space, which ties into my next point a little bit here. The thing that I've found really helpful when dealing with mental challenges or brain health issues is challenging negative thoughts. When you recognize and challenge the bad thoughts or the hard thoughts that you have in your head, it can help create a more positive outlook. And so how do we question these negative emotions when they pop up? Well, one, we have to be aware that they're happening, which is why substance use creates a problem, because if you're constantly numbing yourself to those emotions, you might not be aware that you're having them in the first place. And so we have to shed light on those emotions in order to be aware of them and in order to recognize that they're happening. And once we recognize that they're happening, we have to ask questions in order to really dig to the root of why we're thinking that, or why our false self, the one that talks crap, is thinking that. One of my favorite exercises is asking why, but specifically asking why like you're a toddler. Whenever you encounter a toddler that's trying to learn and understand the world around them, they ask why 1,000,000 times. Why do you have to brush your teeth? Oh, to make your teeth clean. Why? Because it's good for your breath. Why? Because it cleans all the bacteria off of your teeth and it helps get rid of the bad smells. Why? And it goes on and on and on. It can be a point where it becomes really irritating as the adult who's trying to explain the 1,000,000 whys, but we can do that same exercise with ourselves. I feel like crap today. Why? Things have been kind of stressful in my life, and so I'm just not feeling very good. Why? Well, I've had this project at work, and my relationship's not going well, and X, Y, and Z. Why? And when you keep asking why, ultimately you'll get to the very root cause of what is giving you that negative emotion in the first place. When you really start to ask those questions, it helps you dig deep, because the surface level reason for why you think you feel badly might not be the root cause of why you feel badly. And when you continue to ask why, it can help you dig in and narrow in on the very specific part of that issue. Another good way, or another good question to ask yourself is, what evidence do I have to support this negative belief? If we think about it this way, if I were to say, oh, I'm not very strong, I feel like I'm a weak person physically, what are the supporting facts that I have that supports that negative belief? And when you start thinking about it in that context, well, I mean, I go to the gym, I lift weights pretty regularly, and so I'm just not lifting as much as I think I should. Does that mean you're a weak person? No, it means you're developing your strength. Trying to dial in on the more logical parts of these very emotional feelings can help you identify and really, again, get to the root cause of what's bringing them up for you. So asking why and asking what evidence that you have, or what evidence do I have that supports these negative beliefs, often helps you realize that those negative beliefs don't have as much power as you thought they did. They don't have as much pull in your life because there's not much that actually gives them power other than the part of your brain that talks crap. So when you can quell that thing that says that you're not good enough, it can help you look at things in a more positive way and improve your mental health and your brain health across the board. So in closing, you have to train your mind like you train your body. Consistency and being thorough are the things that are going to help you get to where you want to be from a mental health standpoint, especially as an athlete. We all know that exercising and training is good for stress management, but there's a lot of other factors that go into it. Yes, we talked about stress management and that being important because when we have those negative thoughts, it helps stimulate that stress response in our body, tying back into the fight, flight, or freeze reflexes. But you also have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You're practicing self-care. Be selfish with your self-care. It's not just about bubble baths and nice dinners. It's about doing the hard stuff too. A lot of the traditional self-care is more of a self-soothing thing in terms of it tying into a little bit of substance use. Because I know that there are people at the end of the day who are like, oh, I'm gonna have a glass of wine because I deserve it. It's part of my self-care, which is fine. Like if you wanna have a glass of wine, have a glass of wine. But if that becomes a habit every single time that you're feeling stressed out, it's not gonna be as helpful because it's numbing you to the emotions that you should be processing through in the first place. And it's preventing you from challenging those negative thoughts that you have. And when you challenge those negative thoughts, it helps you get to the root of why you're feeling those things in the first place. And when you can get to the real root of understanding why, the cycle can just repeat, where you can get back into your self-care, you can get back into those good habits, which help you manage your stress, which help you be more mindful and help ground you so that you don't have those moments where you're feeling super stressed out and super anxious. But you have to be consistent with it because mental health and brain health is not a linear progression. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, just like your physical training, where you have really good days, where you have really bad days, and that's okay. The bravest thing that you can do is say, I will try again tomorrow. Even if it didn't go the way that you wanted to today, I will try again tomorrow. And when you keep showing up, when you keep putting in the work, it's impossible not to see results. Consistent work will beat hard work when hard work is not consistent. Thanks for watching the video today, guys. I really hope you got some good value out of it. If you enjoyed this one, watch another one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.